Ding, 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 ding. I want to call this show to order. Welcome to another fresh edition of Kiwanis Connects. I'm Aaron, the voice Phillips, of course, joining me or me joining her, whichever way you want to look at it. Doc Val from beautiful California, I presume. And all of you out
Absolutely.
there, right?
I am at home. Okay,
Uh-oh.
mark that
That's a
special
rare,
day on the calendar.
that's a rare
Uh,
feat.
I know. But this is like, pre Mardi Gras time. So I'm like figuring out, okay, how do I have a great time all weekend long and
Okay.
still take care of business? So that's where my head's at right now. So
Well, you know what? We have a good You know what? Mardi Gras is such a great time. We always have a good time here. You know why? Because we love doing what we do. We want to thank
absolutely.
everybody for tuning in out there, whether you're watching us on Facebook on the Kiwanis Connect show page or WWDB-TV in Las Vegas, or on YouTube. If you prefer YouTube, we got you covered there. Same show channel names. But if you like Roku, and who doesn't love a little Roku nowadays? WWDB TV has a new channel, not a new channel, has a channel up there that you can download and watch the plethora of shows that are available there in about 3 days, 2 to 3 days from now. You can check it out. You can also call today, 702-992-3207. Put your comments in the chat room as you always do. Of course, we have wow moments. We have bad dad jokes ready to rock and roll. And today, I'm going to give a little shout out and love to the Kiwanis Club of Town Center here, because this is the home club of our Lieutenant Governor, Kimberly Temple, who also, by the way, doubles as the president, too. So I figured I'd give a little love to the Town Center Club, which is right in the heart here of Virginia Beach. Not the beach heart, but in inner area. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of events I'm going to share again that are happening out this way. We know Val's got a lot of stuff. Maybe we get a 2-minute or 3-minute recap of Midwinter North from last week. But joining us today on the show, this really big show, you've been seeing its commercials for at least a month now. I've been talking about him because he's a fellow Kiwanian of mine in the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club out here in the Capital District. He is a sponsor and is an advertiser. He's here to join us today. We'll hear from Nate Bordegaray. He is the proprietor. Is that what they call? Whatever
I
the
think that works.
owner.
That works.
He's the
Yeah.
head chief. He's the numero uno of Bordegaray Injury Law here in Chesapeake. Come on in there, Nathan. There he is. Nathan, how are you, sir?
Oh, great. How you doing, Aaron?
We're doing very well. Thank you for joining us today. So, listen, I promise you that you will not run out of your office with your head on fire saying this is the worst thing ever to do to me there, Aaron, because I know you have pull, and I could end up with somebody knocking on my door later, wheeling me off to jail. So I will not do that to you, my friend. Anyway, but thank you for joining us today. Doc Val, listen, we got a lot to talk about today. So how are you doing since midwinter, by the way?
Oh my goodness. Most people, most districts in the world only have one midwinter.
Mm-hmm.
In Cal Neva, we have two.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a midwinter north and a midwinter south. And so it is an absolute phenomenal time. Over 350, 400 people came together this past weekend
Nice.
in a little town called Modesto. Most people don't even know where that is. But if you think American Graffiti, the movie.
Isn't Modesto, though, the Scott and his wife, and they had that whole Scott, the guy who was arrested for killing his wife, Lacey, isn't that Modesto?
That's part of Modesto's history, yes. But I was going to go with the Kiwanis end of the history.
Well, but that's the only thing I know of Modesto. What do I know? What do I know about Aki? That's all I know. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they hold the Kiwanis Club of Northern Modesto hosts the largest car show, classic car show, west of Ohio. And so they, on an average day, they have a 4-day show. On the average day, they have 30,000 people that will attend and 2,500 classic cars and all kinds of fun fest stuff. Last year, they fundraised $180,000 for their community on one weekend.
Wow.
That's what they cleared.
Nate, when do you want to sponsor a car show, Nate?
Sometime soon, I hope.
Are you a golfer, Nate? Are you a golfer too?
No, not at all. I'm a terrible golfer.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe what we'll do is we'll do a mini golf tournament or something.
Oh, I'm much better at miniature golf than actual golf.
Well, then you're going to want to come to our district convention in Las Vegas, because when we have our district convention, the Rose Float Club is hosting a mini golf outing so it'll be inside and it'll be nighttime. So glow it's going to be so much fun. So
When is it? When is it?
It's
When
the first full weekend in August. So
Like
7th, 8th, and 9th of August.
I'm due to come back there for a wedding August 2nd. I don't know that I'll be able to go back and forth.
But maybe if we can figure out how to make you stay all week. Ooh. Let's see what we can do. And I would come in early and be a guest on some of your other shows live. Wait a minute. Are we reeling you in?
Well, it doesn't take much, and it's going to take even less to reel in my other half since she's retired now. So, wow. All right, we'll have to see what the budget will allow.
All right. Well, let's figure it all out. And I'm just going to do a shout out to Douglas Chadwick, who's helping organize that. And Doug, maybe in that process, we can figure out how Aaron can be the MC for the mini golf tournament. Oh, so Nathan, you've got to come out and be a part of this. There's trophies and everything. So,
It's not a participation trophy, is it?
Oh, please no. Oh, no. We do not do happy stars and participation trophies.
Okay, good.
This is the real deal. So, I keep thinking about almost everything that I do is wrapped around Kiwanis in some way or another. Mm-hmm. And I think that I overheard that you guys were saying that you were involved in a major event last night. And so you both look really good. Is it just because you got more rest and you're in the Eastern time zone, or what's going on with you guys?
No, I wasn't at the event. I was at a different event, but Nate attended an event that our Chesapeake Club had. So Nate, why don't you, this is a nice segue, actually. This will be a great way to segue into Nate being a member of the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club. Before we get to the event, we know there's a lot of ways people can volunteer in their community, Nate. And Val and I talk about this all the time. You have Rotary, you have Lions, you have Kiwanis, you have whatever you want. When were you presented about the concept of Kiwanis, and how did that all come about for you to become a member of the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club, first of all?
Well, I joined a little over a year ago, and at that point, my kids have grown a little bit. I've had a little bit more time. I wanted to get more involved with the community. My grandfather was very active in fraternal organizations. He was a Mason. He was in Elks. I think he was in some other things. My wife's father, before he passed away, he was a Mason. He was a Knights of Columbus. And he greatly enjoyed doing that. And it kind of in my family, these things skipped a generation. Like my parents weren't involved in it, but I thought to myself, I was like, this is something I'd like to get involved with. I think, I'm not that young, but I'm not that old. I mean, I'm 43. But in my generation, it gets harder and harder. Once you get older, to meet up with people and and meet up and do good things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sparked an interest, to join a fraternal organization. And I was drawn by the Kiwanis by their mission, of helping children, of doing charitable events that directly benefited children, and so the Chesapeake Club was, I could have, I live on the Virginia Beach Chesapeake border. And so I looked at both clubs, but the Chesapeake Club, to be honest, was a lot more convenient to me. It met in the morning. The Virginia Club is a lunch club, and lunch is just a difficult time for me to do. But these 7 a.m. meetings, I love them. So, I went to a first meeting. It was a great group there. A lot of people who were very heavily involved. I was very impressed, and I just been coming back ever since.
You're one of the few people that's ever said 7 a.m. is a great time.
I was thinking
on the show. and that's awesome because I belong to a club that meets actually at 6:30 a.m. on Fridays. Absolutely. And the very first time I got invited, I said, "You mean 6 p.m.?" And they said, "No, 6:30 a.m." And we end sharp at 8. And so that fits your lifestyle, right?
At least for me, as as a practicing attorney, my lunches can be very unpredictable. Things happen. The evenings can drag on. Unexpected things can pop up, but I can plan stuff for like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, or I'll go to the gym in the morning because I'm not sure when I might get home on a given evening, but I can block out time in the morning. So I mean, by nature, I don't really enjoy waking up early, but I do it anyway because it's the best time to get something done.
Right on. Now, you said the lunch meeting, was that the Town Center Club that was in Virginia Beach that met?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Because when you said Virginia Beach, I was thinking of the Wednesday morning club that meets at 7:30. But when you said lunch, so you visited the Town Center Club. Got it. I just wanted to get that straight in my own mind. So, who was your sponsor when you came in? Who connected you with the club when you first got there?
I might be somewhat unique. I mean, I just the Kiwanis maybe Facebook or internet page for the club worked, and
Gotcha.
it just said it was George Spence, who's the membership coordinator. I just gave him a call, left a message, and he called me back. He's like, hey, come and the first breakfast is free. And then, I met him, talked to some people. And I think he technically sponsored me, but
Gotcha.
That's how I got in. I didn't know anybody in the club before I reached out to George.
So I'm going to give you a small world story, Nathan. Before we left Vegas, and I was instructed or encouraged to reach out to Pip, who our recent member who passed away. And he gave me the name of somebody I was given Pip's name for Chesapeake and somebody over at Virginia Beach. But before I left, Val and I were talking about the clubs in Virginia, in the area here. Mm-hmm. She says to me, I have a friend of mine that's a member of a Kiwanis club out in that direction that she's personal friends with. And I don't know if you follow Doreen and Steve on Facebook much, Nathan, but when they were traveling out to California for the last couple of months at the end of the year, there were pictures of Doreen and Steve having dinner with Val in Cali. Oh. So Val said to me before I left, you've got to connect with Doreen and Steve at this club. They will help you. Mm-hmm. I never put 2 and 2 together until I came to that very first meeting myself. And I started talking with Doreen, and we're talking, where'd you come from? And I'm like, I should have had a V8 because I did not put the 2 and 2 together, that this was the same Doreen and Steve that Val had suggested I reach out to. And we did actually connect in Facebook before we left Vegas. But small world story, Steve and Doreen are good friends of Val's coast to coast. How's that for a story?
Oh, wow. And they were both at the event last night over at Portlock Primary School in Chesapeake, where I think we served 200 hot dogs. We ran out of hot dogs. I mean, there was that many, kids and families that showed up.
And what was the event about? Talk about the event. What was it?
So it was some sort of like physical fitness and activity event where they were encouraging kids and families, to do activities involving physical fitness, because they're always trying to get kids to run around, play more, do more exercise. Because, I mean, kids have a tendency these days, the tablet's just so attractive, to get them off the tablet, get them outside, get some fresh air.
Sure,
and I got looped in to the front desk because I speak fluent Spanish. I lived in Spain for 2 years. I also have a master's degree in Spanish. So it turns out at the Portlock Primary School that I think something like 27% of the children there are Hispanic. There's a big immigrant community or enclave in that part of Chesapeake. So I was helping out. Some of the families came in, giving them tickets and telling them where to go and, greeting them in Spanish. And I had an interesting moment where I ran into a Haitian family, and they didn't speak, they spoke Spanish better than English. And so we were speaking Spanish to, about the event, and they had some questions. And so I always find that fascinating when you have, two people from a different culture speaking a a third language
Sure.
but you're still able to get your point across.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing because, in Kiwanis, we're in over 84 countries and territories around the world. And the most common language for all of us is service.
Mm-hmm.
People, it's like Mother Teresa talked about service. And if you can serve side by side with someone else, it doesn't matter what language you speak, that you're helping people. And so I'm fascinated with the fact that you could just transition right on into Spanish and be talking with these folks. Did you surprise them? Were they surprised to have you, the lawyer guy, speaking Spanish and speaking their language?
Well, I didn't look as lawyerly. I wore my Kiwanis polo shirt, so I don't. They could have thought I worked for the school, but no, they were more relieved. Well, there was some confusion there. I mean, it was one of these events where somebody, I think on Facebook, had publicized it, and the family thought that it was like a medical professional that was offering some sort of like vision consultation.
Oh, wow.
And it was translated into Creole, and I had to explain. I was like, this looks like that that the doctor only publicized the event, but the doctor's not actually here. So we had a long conversation about that. But the family ended up attending the event and participating, and I believe they're the child had fun. So they still had a good time.
Well, that's it. That's the important part, and nothing gets lost in translation. We're going to stop right there. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to get into a little bit about the type of law that Nate practices and can be here of service for you if needed. And we're going to find out, you guys know, we've been talking about mental wellness for a long time, life-work balance. We're going to show you a side of Nate that I don't really know I didn't know about this about Nate, what he likes to do to enjoy life outside of work. We're going to find that out right after the break. You're watching Kiwanis Connects. Don't go anywhere. Otherwise, I'll chase you down. We'll be right back.
Injured in a car wreck in Virginia? Worried about insurance companies taking advantage of you? Attorney Nathan Bordegaray, founder of Bordegaray Injury Law in Chesapeake, is a former insurance defense attorney who knows the insurance company's playbook. With over 12 years of experience and over 100 combined jury trials, bench trials, and arbitrations, Nathan has recovered millions of dollars for his clients. Regardless of where you live in Virginia, Bordegaray Injury Law is ready to help. Call 757-505-HURT. That's 757-505-4878 or visit nbinjury.com today to schedule your free consultation. Allow Bordegaray Injury Law to tilt the scales of justice in your favor.
All right, welcome back to Kiwanis Connects, Firelight Barn. Man, it's been a long time since I've seen. I hope Val's screen is only frozen and that she's not holding her breath as she's drinking out of her cup there. Welcome back to Kiwanis Connects. Hopefully, we'll get that fixed here momentarily. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. John, if you could bring up the Kempsville Family Fun Fest flyer. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. Mark your calendar, September 20th, 2025. Historic Kempsville Family Fun Fest will be held. It's being organized by Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions, and the Episcopal Emmanuel Church. This is really to celebrate the commemoration of the 1775 Revolutionary Times of Virginia. There's going to be vendors, games, food, colonial people, and we're going to see that the Voice is being transported back to be the town crier for that event. They are looking for vendors, so you just need to simply go to kempsvillefunfest.com. Hey, $50 for a table, ladies and gentlemen, in the local area. You want to promote Kiwanis? Maybe Nathan will get a table and introduce and say hello to everybody. Who knows? But come on out, mark your calendars for that. Later on, we'll share the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club, because Nate and I are members of that club. We have a big Shrimp Fest coming up. We'll talk about that. And April 5th, Foundation for the Blind Vision Walk is being held. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. We have that information to show. So a lot going on here on the East Coast, right here in our backyard for Nate and I. And, it's something Nate said when he was talking about being involved in Kiwanis. Like him, I mean, obviously with the background in Kiwanis, I knew what I was getting myself into. But coming out here, Eileen and I, my wife, the only thing we knew of in a brand new area was Kiwanis. And I'll never forget when Eileen and I walked up to the restaurant, and it hadn't opened just yet, so we all congregate outside. We started talking to everybody that was there, and Steve and Doreen were part of that. They made us feel so welcome, like they knew us like forever. And it was such an easy transition to be welcomed in and to feel comfortable with the people that were there. And so when Nate mentioned that earlier, that he just walked in and was made to feel comfortable after talking with George Spence, I can certainly understand that. All right, enough about that. Let's get back to Nate a little bit. Nate, let's talk about your practice. You've been in law now for over 12 years. Previously, you were part of somebody else's law firm, and you decided within the last year, probably a little less than that it was time to have Bordegaray injury law on your own. Talk about your practice. What do you specialize in? Why law? Growing up as a kid, doctor, policeman, Indian, cowboy. Talk about your interest in law and why'd you go down that path?
It's kind of funny you ask. When I was an 18-year-old and applying to college, I thought I either wanted to be a lawyer or a college professor, right? And so I did my undergrad at the University of Chicago. I got really into Spanish. I was a Spanish literature major. I mean, technically the major is called Romance, Languages, and Literature, but I studied Spanish, and I did a study abroad in Seville, Spain. So I spent my junior year there, and when I came back from that, I was like, I want to go to grad school. I want to get a PhD in Spanish literature, and that's what I want to do with my life, right? And that's what brought me to Virginia. I started the master's program at the University of Virginia. It was a good call at the time because unlike law school, my tuition was paid for. I got a fellowship, a living stipend. I had to teach my second year, but not my first year. And it was also great timing because that's how I met my wife. She was my next door neighbor. And so I did the master's component. I got a Fulbright grant to teach English in Spain. So I was in Madrid then for another year, where I was teaching English in a lower income working class neighborhood in Villa de Vallecas, outside of Madrid. Okay. And then in the afternoon I had some free time, and so I linked up with a Spanish Fulbrighter who had a public relations firm, and I worked for a PR firm as an intern. And so that was my first foray into the business field. And so, at that time, I mean, I love and enjoy it still to this day. I read books in Spanish. I enjoy literature, but I realized, I didn't want to be, study literature or write articles that sadly, very few people would read. And I wanted to do something more in, the business, be in business. And just so happened that somebody in my graduate program was working for a PR firm outside of Boston. There was an opening. So while I was in Madrid, I had a job interview, and then I had a job lined up outside of Boston. And so I did a stint in PR for 2 years. I dealt with some lawyers while doing that, who would approve stuff. And, and I came to a point, I was like, that looks more interesting than what I'm doing. And, kind of that previous interest of going to law school came back. And so then I applied to law school. I went to the University of Arizona. After living in Massachusetts, I wanted some warm weather. Um, went there. I passed the Arizona bar. I moved to Phoenix. I was in Phoenix for about 5 years. At that point, I had two small kids. I married, as I said, I married my wife, who I'd met from UVA at that point. She's from Roanoke. We wanted to be closer to family, so we started to look to move to Virginia, and there was an opening with the same. I was working for a large insurance company, as an in-house counsel. There was an opening in Virginia Beach, and I applied to it, and I got the job. I'd never been to Virginia Beach before, so I just went out, so I packed up the U-Haul and drove out there, and it's been 7 years now, since then. And after, about 4 years ago, I moved from the defense side to representing plaintiffs. In my current practice, I represent people who've been injured by the fault of other people. So I represent the victims of these things, rather than the people who were responsible for causing injuries.
Gotcha.
And again, in my current practice, a big focus is motor vehicle accidents, trucking accidents, pedestrian accidents. I do premises liability, slip and falls, dog attacks, dog bites. And the focus of my practice is people here in the Hampton Roads area, especially Chesapeake, but I represent people all over Virginia.
Right on. Val, you have take it away, Val.
Well, I just want to know, do you still have your license in Arizona, or?
I am still licensed in Arizona. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Because, we have a lot of Southwest Kiwanians that are in the Phoenix area. And so they're going to be watching the show. And it was just like, some people may say, oh my gosh, I wish I had known this guy. So I just wanted to have it out there that if you're listening and watching us, you don't have to pull to the side of the road. The information is going to be available on Roku or YouTube or back on Facebook, but that you can still practice in Arizona. So I think that's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And what I was just thinking, it was like texting my mom. It was like, oh my gosh, at one point I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So by having you on here, it's just like it brings back those memories, because my uncle used to call me counsel. Okay, counselor, let's work this through, and that's how he would teach me to be a critical thinker in the process. And
Why does that not surprise me that was your nickname?
I know, I know, but it's like, so was there someone that influenced you when you were a young person that made you want to go into the legal field, or what made you want to do what you do?
In high school, I took like a constitutional law course. We did like a mock appellate argument. I found that very interesting, fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll admit, and this is very true with many lawyers, unless you had like a close family member who's actually a lawyer. I didn't have a great understanding of what lawyers actually do for a living. And that's true. I mean, you go into any law school class, like I remember my first week in law school, people are going around like, hey, what do you want to do? And people have these pie in the sky ideas, like I want to do international human rights law, right? And maybe a select few end up doing that, but by and large, many people will end up, getting paid by or defending insurance companies or large businesses, because that's ultimately where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got like a distant relative, I think like a second or third cousin removed or something, that's a bankruptcy lawyer. But again, I didn't really have a good understanding of what he did before I went to law school. And again, I never imagined that, because my first job out of law school was working for an insurance defense firm, basically defending insurance companies and their insurers. And very few people, when they go to law school, say, oh yeah, I want to do insurance defense work, or I want to defend insurance companies, and even fewer people, consider like, yes, I want to be a personal injury lawyer. It just so happened that I ended up finding the field, that area of practice, very interesting. Well, I didn't enjoy the whole billable hour aspect. My first job, you're keeping track of every 6 minutes of your time. It's getting written down if you don't write it down properly. You're just a billing machine. Like, you're somebody who's producing time, let's say, right? But once I went in house and worked for an insurance company, I didn't have to bill my time anymore, and I actually got to try cases, and so that was a great improvement. But what's kind of drawn me to the law that I do is, you get intimately involved in people's lives, because when you think about an accident, right? It's something that people don't plan. I mean, I'm like, compare that to, like, say, a trust and estates lawyer. I mean, that's usually planned stuff. People come in, I need a will, or I need, an estate plan, right? But people don't plan to get seriously injured in an accident. It's something that happens to them, and it disrupts and interrupts their life. So, when you're in that field of law, you're seeing how somebody's life unfolds after a really disruptive event. How they're different afterwards, how it affects them. How this goes into the whole notion of pain and suffering, which is, even with AI and all that stuff, it's something that you can never really put an exact value on. I mean, it's something that requires, human. It's a human thing, something.
Yeah, it's that human interaction that connects you to the case, and you have to almost position yourself to be a true alliance with your client, because you have to understand their pain and suffering, and like you said, it just kind of disrupts everything. But I wanted to kind of change gears, because what you're talking about can take a huge strain on you as the counselor, because now you're getting more interpersonal with your clientele because of everything you just described, where it upsets the routine. And again, I'm not waking up in the morning saying, boy, I wish somebody would hurt me today. Let me lay down in the middle of the street and get run over. So I want to change gears for a little bit, because there's a lot of stress with that. I mean, attorneys, doctors, a lot of white collar industries come with stress. Everybody has stress. Yep. But when you take on the workload that you do because of you taking on their stress onto your back, you need balance. And so I want to kind of go off on a tangent here. I want you to share, because you mentioned before, you're a husband, you're a father, you have outside interests like Kiwanis and things like that. But ultimately, what you do for a living keeps the lights on, pays the bills, and allows you to have the lifestyle you choose with your kids. But what do you do to balance that? You're an adventurer, was the word that I think you are now labeled with, as an adventurer, because you love Mother Nature. And I know we have some pictures and things we want to show. Talk about your passion. How did this part of you, this hiking, this Mother Nature, how did this side of you get started as your work-life balance? Or Harrison Ford would be jealous of that picture right there.
Oh, big time.
Well, yeah, I mean, one activity I greatly enjoy is backpacking the Appalachian Trail, and it's interesting how I started getting into it. I mean, I grew up out west, and I lived in Arizona for a period of time, and out there's mountains everywhere. Like my house in Phoenix was right next to a mountain. But wow. once I moved to Virginia Beach, the Hampton Roads area, I mean, this place is flat as a pancake. I mean, maybe you can go to Mount Trashmore, but that's the only hill you're going to get.
Right.
And so after a while, I really started to miss mountains and hills. And so, I took my first trek. It was to the Three Ridge, wilderness area outside of Nelly's Ford, Virginia, near Charlottesville. Heavily recommended place. I mean, it's this nice loop hike. You see Boy Scouts there. I mean, just a beautiful hike. So I planned a day hike there, and I'm and this, good grief, I mean, this was well over 5 years ago at this point. Looking back, I mean, I was woefully prepared. I did in the height of winter. I didn't have the right equipment, all that stuff. And I think 15, 16 mile hike, and I wasn't really in the shape for that. But even so, I mean, I was hobbling afterwards, but I had a good time. But it dawned on me, I'm like, man, it's 3.5 hours to get to a good mountain and then 3.5 hours back. Right. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I might as well start doing this overnight. So that's where I started, getting a tent, getting a sleeping pad, and
Sure.
starting to get some equipment. And then I'm like, well, if I'm going to do all this, like, why just do one night? Might as well make a weekend out of it. And then I started getting into longer distance backpacking, and that's where I discovered the Appalachian Trail, which cuts through central Virginia, goes through northern Virginia to through Roanoke, the southwest part of the state, and it's just a wonderful thing. I mean, there's what, like 550 miles of trail that comes through Virginia. I mean, Virginia's got.
I'm sorry. Do you do this on your own, or does the wife and kids go with you, or?
I've taken my son on a few shorter trips.
Okay.
My wife doesn't. She's not a backpacker. I couldn't have done this without her. I mean, she'll watch the kids for a weekend, and
Sure.
and give me the freedom to go backpacking, which I'm eternally grateful for.
She sounds like me, though. She sounds like one of those people that a hike is really walking around in an outdoor mall, and maybe it is hanging out and going to a picnic. But this whole taking your whole house, my great aunt once said, "Why would you sleep on the ground if you have a perfectly good bed indoors?" And so you absolutely fascinate me. Because I looked at all those pictures, and every single one of them, you look like you found your happy place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, wow, absolutely. Absolutely. I am fascinated with how your family is supportive of what you're doing, and the fact that you found time in your world to also be a Kiwanian.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know what? Let's stop right there. That's a good point break. When we come back, we're more with Nate. We got a wow moment, believe it or not. An announcement of a new segment, I believe. Is that right?
That's
what would a Kiwanis Connect show be without bad dad jokes?
You're amazing.
Next week, I'm going to remind everybody next week, but I'm doing it now. Don't forget to change your clocks next Saturday, Sunday morning, 2 a.m. We're springing ahead earlier. I tried to find bad dad jokes themed about that. Even I have to admit the jokes were horrible, so I'm not doing them. So if I'm telling you they're bad, I'm sticking to my books this week. Anyway, don't go anywhere. More with Nate. More stuff to do, plus some announcements on some of those other events going on back here. Don't go anywhere. Let's come very next.
Whitney Houston said it best in one of her award-winning songs, "The children are our future." But how can we ensure that this will happen? One way to ensure our future is to volunteer. Most people would love to volunteer, but they don't know where to go to get involved. Fortunately, there is an answer. The answer is Kiwanis International. Kiwanis International was founded in 1915 in Detroit, Michigan. The name Kiwanis comes from the Algonquin Native American language and translates to "we build." In 1919, Kiwanis changed its focus from business networking to service to children. There are currently 7,200 clubs in 85 nations. However, if you reside or work in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, or Suffolk, you have 11 Kiwanis clubs available for you to become a member and become an active volunteer in your community. This will ensure that children will be our future. For more information, contact Kimberly Temple at 757-793-6761 or by email at towncenterkiwanis@yahoo.com. Injured in a car wreck in Virginia? Worried about insurance companies taking advantage of you? Attorney Nathan Bordegaray, founder of Bordegaray Injury Law in Chesapeake, is a former insurance defense attorney who knows the insurance company's playbook. With over 12 years of experience and over 100 combined jury trials, bench trials, and arbitrations, Nathan has recovered millions of dollars for his clients. Regardless of where you live in Virginia, Bordegaray Injury Law is ready to help. Call 757-505-HURT. That's 757-505-4878, or visit nbinjury.com today to schedule your free consultation. Allow Bordegaray Injury Law to tilt the scales of justice in your favor.
All right, welcome back to Kiwanis Connects. Man, I love those two commercials. Those are probably two of the best that John and I have put together. So I like those. I like putting commercials together. All right, before we get back to Nate, I want to share two events that are happening here in our area. John, Shrimp Fest. This is an event that both Nate and I, our home club, the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club, putting together. It's the 46th annual Shrimp Fest. I was 14 when they started this son of a gun. Shrimp, barbecue, baked beans, coleslaw. You see everything there. Who? The Kiwanis Club of Chesapeake. What? It's the annual Fun Fest. When? May 15th. Mark it on your calendar, 4:30 to 7:30 at the Chesapeake City Park. If you're interested in being a sponsor, you can be a business, you can be a Kiwanis Club from anywhere you want. Here's a list of options for you. We've already sold out two of the big sponsors, which is great. When I see the club next Wednesday, The Voice will be becoming a sponsor on one of those options to support the club. So mark that down. Next, April 5th, the Vision Walk, the Foundation for Blind. We had them as guests here a couple of weeks ago. Doc Val, if you recall, April 5th, Mount Trashmore, which Nate mentioned is probably the highest peak in our area, which is, by the way, covers a landfill. It used to be a landfill that they turned into a park, and it doesn't even stink. They have a lot of Febreze cans as you walk around. Anyway, so this is April 5th, 10 a.m. Yours truly has been tapped to be the MC for this event. So be there. You've got information. You can contact Lauren Meltzer. Her email's on the bottom. Phone number's there. give.fightingblindness.org/Hampton Roads Vision Walk. Or, John, the next page for this. There you go. Guess what? You can be a sponsor there too if you want, ranging from $500 as a supporter all the way up to presenting sponsor. All of this, there's a local chapter here, stays in the area to help support the Foundation for Blind, working on anything relating to vision, making certain that your vision continues to be as healthy as possible. I'm excited to be part of that one. So thank you, John, for that. All right, let's get back to Nate. Val, I'll turn it to you for a couple of minutes before we get going with your wow moments.
Okay. So, Nathan, one of the things that you had talked about a little bit earlier is that you love still reading in Spanish. And I thought I would share something with you that's been happening out here in California. The Salinas Literacy Club of our area actually has a program, and they got a grant from Kiwanis International's Possibility Project. And so every month they give all the first graders in the city of Salinas a book that's bilingual, and it's in Spanish and in English. And they have different projects all month long that are with this book. They're all brand new. The kids get to take them home. And what we've discovered over the last 6 months of them doing this is that parents now who speak primarily Spanish are willing to come in and help with the classroom, because the kids are taking the books home and they're reading with their parent and they're teaching their parents English.
That's awesome.
And so it's going in both directions. And so it gave me goosebumps when we saw the outcome, because the Salinas School District has one of the lowest literacy rates in all of California. And it also puts them in the top 250 lowest literacy rates in the country. And so for me to be a part of something that magical and for you to share that with me, it's like, I'm so glad you're here. I just want to say thank you. It's like, gracias, right? Okay.
Well, actually, I was going to share kind of an interesting California connection. It's not a direct family member. I mean, I've researched this, but probably not many know, but my last name, and the reason it's so hard to pronounce is because it's Basque. And,
okay.
and that comes from the Basque region of, Spain and France, like on northern Spain, the southern France kind of border area. My grandfather, he was born in southern France, and he immigrated to first Southern California, but he grew up in San Francisco, and there was many Basque immigrants in northern California. Well, it turns out there's a Californian named Frenchy Bordagaray, or Bordagaray, with an A in the middle instead of an E like me. And so again, I didn't find any family connection, but what's interesting about him is he was a Major League Baseball player in the 30s and 40s, and he won the World Series with the Yankees in 1941.
How cool is that?
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, along those lines, anytime you see somebody with the last name that ends in Garay, that's a Basque surname. Like there was a Nobel Prize winner in literature named Jose Echegaray from Spain. Like, so yeah, and there's, I mean, you'll see. I think there's some Latin American soccer players with just the last name Garay, Garay. So you run into that.
I guess Phillips Garay wouldn't work so much, would it?
Sure, it would. And it's actually, you can, but I think if you put Brown Klingelhofer Garay, it would go from one cuff on the back of your jersey all the way to the other cuff, and it would be really small letters.
Your business card would be about this big.
It would be that big, which is I one of my favorite foods is Basque, and so when I ever go through the Fresno area, there's an amazing set of Basque restaurants, and so this is like one of those things I'll be able to sound kind of intelligent for a trivia quiz. So
there you go.
Thank you, Nathan.
Hey, Val, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
I think it's time for some wow moments. John, let's hit it. Wow moment.
I just love that. Wonder Woman. All right. So this week I ran into some really amazing 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders, and they are putting together their own Builders Club. And so Builders Club is the Kiwanis family at the middle school level. And so they're all focused in on reading. And I'm thinking normally, at that age, they're just starting to learn about the opposite sex or whatever. And so they're a little squirrely, not this group of kids. And so I was saying, okay, since your focus is on literature and, that's a Val thing. I said, how can I help you pick out some books? We're going to give you 200 books. So, because they want to give every 7th grader a book that every 7th grader can read in the school. And so I said, what about Harry Potter? We have tons of Harry Potter. And this is not a knock on J.K. Rowling's, but they all said no. And I was like, wait a minute. I've never met anybody that says no on Harry Potter. And they said, well, every book that we do in our book reading and literacy, we always do the research on the people that write the book first before we pick our book club. Okay. And we don't like her politics. And so the best way to not like her politics is to not spend money with her.
Wow.
And I was, the wow moment for me was that they physically thought this process through.
Yeah.
And have made a conscious choice on what they're doing. And they're very excited. They don't put their politics on anyone because everybody knows we're not religious or political. But they said that they are, as far as their financial literacy, because that's one of the things they do, is to invest in what they believe in.
Wow. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, that is a wow moment. That is crazy. Before we go on to bad dad jokes, Nate, let's review your contact information so people can get a hold of you. I know we just ran it in the commercial where people can find you to reach out and chat with you about whatever they need to chat with you about. Go for it.
So yeah, you can find me at www.nbinjury.com, and or you can reach us at 757-505-HURT, which is 4878.
if someone right now watching is considering becoming a Kiwanian somewhere, what would you do to sell? I don't want to say sell, but what would you share to that person to say Kiwanis is the best place for them? Give me a sales pitch.
The people were very welcoming. At first, the first time I came to the meeting, the activities we do, of serving food in events that have benefited law enforcement, benefited children. I find these events they're fun. They can be strenuous, but in a good way. And I've always found these events, very enjoyable, very, very, pleasurable. I mean, I'm the type that, I'm at my desk all day, I'm staring at a computer and, getting on my feet and serving food and, helping kids or helping law enforcement, firefighters, that sort of thing. I mean, I find that a good change of pace.
Right on. Well, very good. There you have it, folks. From Nathan, you're considering Kiwanis. Hey, he told you why. Check it out. Now, if you forget all of that, just go to Kiwanis Connect show page on Facebook, drop us a message there, or you can always email us, KiwanisConnectsInfo@gmail.com, not only about learning about Kiwanis, but if you want to become an advertiser on our show, just like Nate is, or if your club wants a commercial. I understand the Chesapeake Kiwanis Club is considering one for the Shrimp Fest. They previously noted one, so I'm waiting to hear back on that. Just email us, KiwanisConnectsInfo@gmail.com. Well, it's time for it, John. Let's do it. It's time for it. Good friend Kathy Zemansky being up in Erie, Pennsylvania. She's only got 6 inches of snow left, but it's snowing there now. Talk about timing. The last week, for those who don't know, here in the Virginia Beach area, we got snow. We got anywhere from 5 to 12.5 inches. I saw pictures on Facebook. Not me, baby. I was in Las Vegas, and I watched it from afar. I watched it on my video camera with Eileen and I going, woo! Okay. Bad dad jokes, and then we'll go out on the announcement of our new segment debuting next week, because that's the best note to end the show. All right, here you go. Remember, folks, I just read them. I don't make them. All right, here you go. What's the best way to carve wood? What's the best way to carve wood? Whittle by whittle. Yeah, I'm running. See, I got Boldy on that one. All right, this one, maybe a little off target, but I don't care. What kind of teacher never farts in public? I may have used this one before. I think I might have. What kind of teacher never farts in public? A private tutor. Okay. That's for all you teachers out there. And for Nate, we're going to be a professor. There you go. Hey, what washes up on tiny beaches? This is apropos for Virginia Beach. What washes up on tiny beaches? Microwaves. Micro. Okay.
Wow.
What has 4 legs and can fly? See, I'll just keep going. What has 4 legs and can fly? 2 birds. Okay. I just read them, folks. What happens when you get hit with a rental car? What happens when you get hit with a rental car? It hurts. Okay. There you go.
Okay, that killed me.
You like that one?
I like that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, feel free to use these around your dinner table at any time, okay? What happens when you watch a shipwreck? What happens when you watch a shipwreck? You just let it sink in. All right. Now, should I go back to the other joke?
Oh, I have one.
Oh, go for it. Yes.
What happens to bad rainbows?
Oh, I saw this one. I know the answer.
What happens to bad rainbows? They go to prison.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yes, man. I loved it. since I talked about the historic Kentsville Family Fun Fest and celebration of the Revolutionary War, I'll end with this one. What did George Washington say? I think I might have used this one actually, but I'll do it again. I liked it. What did George Washington say to his troops before crossing the Delaware, Nate? What did George Washington say to his troops before crossing the Delaware? Get in the boat! And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's this week's edition of That Jokes. All right. On that note, Val saved the last few minutes, but let's talk about the new segment debuting on this very show next week.
Okay. Oh,
It
I can catch my breath.
It hurts. Get in the boat.
It hurts. So, I had started a segment at the beginning of the year that was called the mental health moment. And I realized, why not have somebody who's an absolute expert at this and really make this a part of what we do, the fabric of what we need to talk about. And I talked with Melissa, who's been on our show a couple times. And so next week we will be debuting the Melissa Mental Health Minute. And so she'll be talking about for a minute and giving you tips and tricks on how to help manage your mental health with all the things that we do. There's so much bombarding us every day. And as people who are major givers out in the world and we're all volunteering, there's always these different kinds of challenges. The kids that we work with are being bombarded by all kinds of messages on social media. Nathan, you talked about all the kids that are on their iPads and all that kind of stuff. And we're noticing now that a lot of adults are being bombarded by always being on social media and having to know the latest news and all that kind of stuff. And so the Mental Health Minute is that opportunity to really figure out how to find that and how to find that balance. So look for it, and it'll be Melissa's Mental Health Minute.
I had an opportunity to catch up with Melissa in Vegas last week, and we threw this idea around, and I'm so glad that she connected with you to do it. I have to say this about Melissa. She mentalhealthmoment.org is her organization. From the moment I met her a year and a half ago, the Roundtable was sponsoring an event in Vegas. It was for the Nevada chapter for National Suicide Prevention, and we sponsored the event. And she had a table there, and she had her 8-year-old daughter there. And I'll never forget. This is what hooked me in. Me, Rick Upchurch, George Miklos were walking, and this little 8-year-old's out in front of the table. She goes, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "Yes." She says, "Do you have stress in your life?" Now, when an 8-year-old asks you that question, so I started chuckling. I looked over my shoulder because Melissa's table was right there. Now, here's the funny thing. Melissa looked like Spider-Woman because it was a windy day, and the wind was destroying and moving her banners. So she was doing all she could to keep her tent up. But here I am, I'm having this guy. I said, "Well, yes, I do have some stress, young lady. Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, because my mom over here, she has some great suggestions and ideas on how you can handle the stress throughout the day." Really? And she took my hand and she walked me over to the table. And it was so great. And then I chatted with Melissa. Let me just tell you this. I love me some Melissa Atwell. And ladies and gentlemen, I assure you, we've had her, like Val said, she was a sponsor. She's got this great nonprofit. Douglas Chadwick out there donated some stuff that we had her on. We've got money raised for her, the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to tune in for her stuff. Again, is it weekly she's going to provide, or how often is she providing her moment?
Every week we'll have a Mental Health Minute.
So I'll just say I love me some Melissa Atwell, and you will too. I love that gal. She is a great person. Nathan, you're great also. Why? Because you're a Kiwanian. You're a stand-up gentleman. I'm proud to call you a friend and fellow Kiwanian in Chesapeake. Again, phone number and email or website for people to reach out to you.
Go to nbinjury.com or call 757-505-4878.
There you have it. Val, closing thought.
The laughter that we have when we're on this show is something that I think is absolutely amazing and healing. And the fact that I get to meet Nathan in person, not just seeing all these superhero pictures that were shared, it just makes it special. So thank you all for sharing in with our show. If you want to rewatch this, Aaron says that we're all over the place. So have a great weekend and happy Mardi Gras. Because Tuesday
Happy
is
Mardi
not
Gras.
Tuesday. Happy Mardi
There
Gras.
you go. And when you're closing in between 80 and 100,000 views a week, we must be doing something right. With that, everybody, hey, listen, I always like to say, be kind to everybody. Why? We're all we have. Don't you forget it. Join us next week right here on Kiwanis Connects, or tomorrow, Aaron's Hour. I'll be doing something at 11 a.m. I haven't figured that out yet. Everybody I'm talking to, no one's available. So it may just be me for, some of my best shows are those Seinfeld moments. Anyway, with that, this show is over.